Down in St. Pete, Florida, I found my babe.
St. Petersburg, Florida, a city of soft pearl white beaches, cool blue skies, and vivid green palm trees. The city was the ideal winter getaway, though not everybody was content with their life in the Sunshine City. Back in the 1920s and 30s, African Americans and Jewish merchants were oppressed by laws which restricted them from owning property and operating businesses in white areas. The minorities of St. Petersburg, Florida, took a stand in history by opposing policies of segregation through swim-ins, sit-ins, elections, and sanitation strikes. Though they managed to desegregate the city, they were further oppressed by modern infrastructure and the economy when the gas plant area was destroyed. The civil rights movement in the Sunshine City had begun.
The Million Dollar Pier separated two of the most heated battlegrounds of St. Petersburg. On the north side sat Spa, Beach, and Pool, a white sandy paradise for whites only. On the south side was a group of rocks dubbed South Mole, the only place in St. Petersburg's 45 miles of coastline where African Americans could lawfully swim. In the wake of Brown versus the Board of Education, NAACP officials encouraged African Americans to leave their inherently unequal beaches and venture to the pristine beaches occupied by the whites. When 10 members of the Civic Coordinating Committee, CCC, attempted to buy entrance to the spa in August of 1955, they were refused entrance. The African Americans exhibited their outraged opinions. They believed that as taxpayers, they too should be entitled to use public facilities. The local CCC, spurred by Dr. Fred Alsop, filed a lawsuit against the city in October of 1955. To keep the spa segregated, city lawyers claimed that African Americans scared away tourists and damaged the spa's ability to collect a profit. Fred Alsop and the African Americans of St. Petersburg won the lawsuit, with the judge ruling that if the city could not make a profit on an integrated basis, then the spa would have to close. City manager Ross Wyndham made several attempts to replace Spa Beach via building an auditorium and cultural center, but his attempts ultimately failed.
However, the fiercest opposition to integrating Spa Beach and the pool came from city manager Ross Wyndham, who condemned the swim-in and suggested black residents should be happy with what they had been provided with at South Mole.
In February of 1960, 4 African American students from North Carolina conducted a sit-in at Woolworth's lunch counter. The effect was instantaneous. By 1961, if you were an African American and a college student, then you had participated in a sit-in. The same held true for St. Petersburg. In March of 1960, African American activists conducted 2 days of sit-ins at various locations. Among the orchestrates was C. Betty Wimbish and Theodore Floyd, both prominent African American leaders. Floyd took the demonstrations to Webb City, with the goal of forcing the city to establish a biracial committee the following day. When they arrived, they were informed that the store had run out of counter checks that granted access to the lunch counter. St. Petersburg leaders ultimately established the committee, and the African American activists turned their attention to education. As the Webb City sit-ins were taking place on March 5, 1960, C. Betty Wimbish announced her candidacy for the seat on the Pinellas County School Board. Though school segregation was banned in 1954, the majority of Pinellas County students learned in a racially segregated environment. Wimbish suggested a new approach. Her stance was that if you cannot integrate the schools, integrate the school board. Though she did not win, she made a breakthrough in racial etiquette. At the end of the election, Wimbish came in second with 10,000 votes, but only 3,798 votes came from registered African Americans. Wimbish ran for the city council seat again in 1969 and became the first African American city council member in St. Petersburg history. The stance taken by C. Betty Wimbish allowed African Americans to have representation in city council.
In May 1968, the sanitation workers of St. Petersburg, Florida, led by Joe Savage, took a stand by holding a strike for higher wages. The majority of them were African Americans. Within days, City Director Wayne Andrews fired 70% of sanitation workers. Instead, he hired white prisoners to fill their positions. Andrews also ordered riot gear for the police in case the strike got out of hand. He initially refused to meet with the workers' attorneys, Jim Sandelin and Frank Peterman. But Andrews capitulated after the city streets began to overflow with garbage and negotiated a settlement. The stands taken by Joe Savage, Jim Sandelin, and Frank Peterman respectively blazed the way for future stands. Today, Tropicana Field stands out against the St. Petersburg skyline. Until the mid-1990s, the gas plant neighborhood was located where the present-day stadium sits. The gas plant area was a thriving minority community of shops, schools, and homes. One of these businesses was Katz Grocery, owned by Abe Katz, the final building to be seized by eminent domain before construction began. Quote, the city lawyers ratcheted up pressure on Katz Grocery for 2 years, but its owner refused to budge. For over 50 years, Abe Katz took a stand in history by providing grocery services and dignity to the minority neighborhood. Due to Tropicana Field, the area slipped into economic decline.
Don't have none. Abe Katz has served customers as a neighborhood grocer since the days of the Great Depression. And for 30 years, he's run this store with his wife, Bunny, in the true mom-and-pop tradition. Home deliveries for shut-ins, checks cashed for those who couldn't cash them elsewhere, and credit for hungry customers who had neither checks nor cash to feed their families.
Originally, it was the biggest part of my business, but as we grew, the cash became the bigger part. But we do have an awful lot of credit here.
Katz customers who have shopped at this store for generations say you could find dignity here along with the meat and potatoes.
I'm going to be hurting for a long time. I won't ever find nobody else to treat me like he treats, like his family, and like the store here treats me. Won't find anybody else.
Recently, Elihu and Carolyn Brayboy are improving the economy of 22nd Street South by rehabilitating closed businesses through investment.
I believe that when you look at the 22nd Street corridor today, and you hadn't been here in a few years, you would be amazed. This building here was built in 1939. One side of the building was originally the Sidney Harden grocery store that opened up in 1942. Most people had thought the area to be basically too far gone. But Carol and I had the spirit of renewal and rebuild. And if there was a one wall left, we could take it and work with it.
The stance taken to pursue happiness by the African Americans of St. Petersburg, Florida, led to the eventual extension of freedoms in St. Pete by using swim-ins, sit-ins, elections, and strikes. Even though the city was desegregated, African Americans were further segregated by economics and modern infrastructure. The African American neighborhoods were left to self-destruct as the upper and middle classes of those neighborhoods moved away and the sense of communities dissolved.
Stands taken by Fred L. Sump, C. Betty Wimbish, Joe Savage, Jim Sandelin, Frank Peterman, Abe Katz, and Elihu and Carolyn Brayboy helped to shape the present-day St. Petersburg, Florida.
On in St. Pete, Florida, I found my baby there.